Hello and welcome to the second part of the Roots Radicals video lesson. In the first lesson I went over the rhythm guitar part that goes throughout the whole song, and in this one I'm going to talk about the lead guitar parts that show up in the bridge and then again at the outro. So let's get into it. Now, even if you haven't completed the first one, you can still learn this stuff first and then go back. There really isn't an exact order to this, so I'll leave that up to you. Now, before we get started, make sure you download the PDF that comes along with this. It has everything you need already tabbed out for you so that you can practice this when you don't have the video handy. And also, later in the video, I'll be putting the tabs right up here so you'll be able to follow along and see what I'm doing as well. Now, the first part we're going to take a look at is the bridge, and it starts about 1 minute 26 seconds into the song. So the first part of the bridge we already kind of went over in the last video, but it connects to what we're doing here. So what we're going to do is start off with an F5 power chord. So first finger on the last string, first fret, next two fingers on the next two strings, both on the third fret, and then we play eighth notes. So the first time through I'm going to play a little bit slower than the actual song, and we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and all downstroke, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the whole time. Then after we do that for 2 measures, we have this fill that comes in. So you want to take your index finger, go to the 7th fret on the first 2 strings, you play that, and then you hammer on to the 8th fret. And then once it's on the 8th fret, you strum 2 more times for 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So as you can see, you do that twice. And then it moves into the next measure. So the next measure, we have the 10th fret, and we're going to bend a half step on both the first and second strings at the same time. So you play, bend up a half, and then you do that a total of 8 times in that measure for 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So when you hear it, it sounds pretty quick. It's just like that. So you can hear it bends up, comes back, bends up, comes back, but there isn't a release. You don't have, it's not that sound, it's just bend, 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 like that. So, and then after that, you go back into that F5 power chord. So I'm going to play for you the first 4 measures of that bridge. And then it continues on. So next up again, we have the F5 for a full measure. And then the next measure is where it kind of breaks it up a little bit more. So we have the F5 for, the first half of the measure. 1 and 2 and. Then we play it on 3, but then immediately your third finger will jump up to the 4th string 10th fret. So you'll want to practice going from F5 to that single note on the 4th string 10th fret. And that leads you in to the next lead part. So we have 10, 8 on the 3rd string, 10 on the 3rd string, and those are pickup notes into the next measure, and 4 and. So that whole measure together, we start with the F5, 1 and 2 and 3. And that brings us into the next measure, which is all single notes. So once we have those pickups, so we have a full bend on the 10th fret of the 3rd string. And then we play 8, 10 on that string, use the 3rd finger to play the 10th on the 4th string, come back to the 8, 10 on the 3rd string. So that measure all together, 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. So with the pickups, All right, and there's a little bit more after that. The next measure, we have a bend and release on 10 on the 3rd string. So it sounds like this. And then it goes back to 10 on the 3rd string, 8 on the 3rd string, and then we land on the note we started with, which is the 10th fret of the 4th string. So here's that section all together, starting with those pickup notes after the F5. All right, so we can move along now. The next part, all F5 again for 2 full measures. And then we do exactly what we did before with the 7/8 hammer-ons on the first 2 strings. Then the half bends on 10. And what I do is use my middle 2 fingers, because it just gives you more power behind it and you can get both strings much easier that way. Then again, we go back to the F5 after that measure. And then to end this section, we go to that 10th fret 3rd string, do a full bend. Then we do 10/8 on the 3rd, 10/8 on the 4th, 8 again, and then slide out. So that ending one last time. And then it would go back into the verse section, that whole thing which I explained in the last video. All right, so that is the bridge. I'm going to play it all the way through so you can hear what that'll sound like. And I'm going to do it close to full speed because it is pretty fast. All right, so here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, and that is the bridge section. So next up, we're going to take a look at the outro. Now the outro is a little bit easier actually. It doesn't have quite as many elements to it, but it sounds really good. So let's take a closer look at that. Now the outro starts at about 2 minutes and 30 seconds into the song. And what we have is kind of a Chuck Berry lick, really, where we're playing this bent 10th fret on the 3rd string and then hitting the first 2 strings at the 8th fret. So you have that. And the way I hear it, it sounds like a half bend. And so you do that over and over again. In fact, if I take a look at the music here, we have 4 measures, which means you're going through that a total of 8 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, it's played pretty fast, and you can hear it in the background. It's kind of a big grand finale on the song, kind of a big noisy ending, which sounds really cool. So it's kind of more like... So you want to practice that over and over again so you can get it nice and smooth and nice and comfortably there. Now, after you do that for 4 measures, there's one measure that's a little bit different. They actually go... and then come up to the 12th fret with a full bend. So like that. And you have to listen very carefully, but it is there. It's right before the ending. You have this extra bend that's kind of out of place. Just like that. So 10th fret plus the 8th, then 12th fret with a full bend, and then come back to those 8ths. So I'm going to go through it slowly there. And then the measure after that simply goes back to the 10, 8, 8, 8, 10, 8, 8, 8. Like that. Now, as we get to the end, there are single notes that finally jump in to bring us to the last chord. So here we have a 10 again on the 3rd string. We bend that half a step. Come to the 8 on the 2nd string. 10, 8. just like that. So, and then we have one final measure of notes. So we have the 10 again. This time it's bend and release, like that. So what I did there was bend and release, play the 8th fret on the 3rd string, and then the 10th fret on the 4th string. Then the index finger goes back to the 8th fret 3rd string, 10th fret with the 3rd finger on the same string, back to the 8th, and then we end on the note C or the 10th fret of the 4th string. So all together we have then at full speed it's kind of like this. And you can hear that right before the end of the song, and of course the other guitar player is hitting that C5 chord, so it blends together real nicely there. All right, so here's the entire outro. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And there you have it. Now you'll be able to play the lead parts to Roots Radicals by Rancid. So I hope you found this video helpful and you'll have a good idea of how to play that lead part. And if you did, please give it a like. I always appreciate it when people do that. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. On top of that, don't forget to go to themissingmethod.com, and when you're there, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get a free ebook, so keep that in mind. And if there's a song that you want to learn and just have a hard time figuring it out, let me know in the comments below and I'll see what I can do. All right, so go ahead, download that PDF, get to practicing, and I will see you in the next video.